Millions of Americans still can't stop talking about Barack Obama. And we're not talking about his supporters. We're talking about people who genuinely dislike him. People who, more than a decade after he left office, still bring up his name daily, still make content about him, still feel a fire in their chest the moment they hear his name. And what's fascinating is that this isn't just politics. This is something much deeper, something that reveals how the human mind actually works. Because here's what nobody wants to admit. The people most obsessed with Barack Obama aren't obsessed with his policies. They're obsessed with what he represents to them. And that distinction changes everything. Let's start with something called social identity theory. Psychologists developed this idea to explain why humans don't just join groups. They become those groups. Your tribe becomes part of who you are at a core level. Your values, your identity, your sense of self-worth. Now here's where it gets interesting. When Barack Obama became the 44th president of the United States, he didn't just win an election. To a large portion of America, he represented a shift, a cultural earthquake. And for people who had built their entire identity around a very specific idea of what America looks like and who leads it, that felt threatening. Not politically, personally. And the human brain doesn't take personal threats lightly. This is where fear psychology enters the picture. When we feel our identity is under attack, our brain triggers the same response as a physical threat. The amygdala fires, cortisol floods the system, and suddenly, logic takes a backseat to emotion. That's not weakness, that's human biology. But here's the strange part. The stronger the emotional reaction, the stronger the obsession becomes. Think about it this way. Have you ever had someone in your life you couldn't stop thinking about, even though you didn't like them? That's not random. Psychologists call this emotional conditioning. The brain locks onto stimuli that provoke strong emotional responses. Whether the emotion is love or anger, the neurological process is almost identical. Obama became that stimulus for millions of people. Every time his name appeared on screen, it triggered a reaction. And every repeated reaction deepened the neural pathway. Over time, thinking about Obama became automatic, habitual, almost involuntary. Now pay close attention, because this next part is where the psychology gets really revealing. There's a concept called the halo effect. It's the tendency to extend our feelings about someone across everything they're connected to. If we admire someone, we assume everything around them is good. If we resent someone, we assume everything around them is a threat. For many in the MAGA movement, Obama's popularity, his education, his manner of speaking, his global reputation, none of that was seen as impressive. It was seen as suspicious, threatening, proof of something being hidden. What most people don't realize is that this is a textbook example of cognitive dissonance. When reality contradicts what we deeply believe, it creates psychological discomfort. And our brain will go to extraordinary lengths to resolve that discomfort. It will reinterpret facts, reject evidence, create alternative explanations. Not because people are stupid, but because the alternative, accepting that your worldview might be wrong, is psychologically unbearable. And this is where confirmation bias steps in. Once you've decided how you feel about someone, your brain automatically seeks out information that confirms that feeling. You stop seeing evidence, you start seeing ammunition. Every story that fits your view of Obama reinforces the belief. Every story that contradicts it gets dismissed as fake, biased, or part of a larger conspiracy. Now multiply this across millions of people. Add social media algorithms that learn exactly which content makes you react, and then serve you more of it, and you have the perfect psychological machine for deepening obsession. This is groupthink in action. When everyone around you feels the same way, when your community, your family, your newsfeed all reflect the same emotional reaction, individual critical thinking weakens. The group's belief becomes your belief, and the group's obsession becomes your obsession. The real reason this works so powerfully comes down to something called authority bias, combined with tribalism. Humans are wired to follow strong leaders. When a charismatic political leader repeatedly points at someone as the source of a problem, the followers don't just adopt that view intellectually, they feel it emotionally. And once an emotion is involved, facts rarely change minds. Barack Obama has been the central boogeyman in this narrative for over 15 years. That's not an accident. Psychologically, having a defined enemy is one of the most powerful tools for group cohesion. It creates a shared emotional bond. It gives the group purpose, a threat to fight against. And the bigger the enemy feels, the more unified the group becomes. But here's what's really fascinating. Obama himself is almost irrelevant to the equation at this point. What people are reacting to is a psychological symbol, an idea that has been emotionally loaded through years of conditioning. His actual words, his actual record, his actual life, those details have become secondary. The symbol is what matters now. And this is the part that should make all of us stop and reflect. Because this isn't just about Obama, or Trump, or any single political figure. This is about how every single one of us is vulnerable to the same mechanisms. We all have people, ideas, or groups that trigger an automatic emotional reaction. We all have blind spots shaped by our tribe. We all experience confirmation bias. We all feel the pull of groupthink when the people around us all believe the same thing. The question isn't whether these psychological forces affect you. They do. They affect all of us. The question is whether you're aware of it, because awareness is the only thing that creates the space between stimulus and response, between the trigger and the reaction. That space is where critical thinking lives. That space is where you stop being controlled by your psychology and start directing it. The next time you feel an overwhelming emotional reaction to a public figure, a news story, or a political name, ask yourself what that reaction is really about. Ask yourself what identity it's protecting. Ask yourself what information you might be ignoring because it doesn't fit the story your brain wants to tell. That's not weakness. That's the most powerful thing a human being can do. If this video made you think differently, even slightly, that's the beginning of something important. Subscribe, because every week we go deeper into the psychology behind the headlines, the behavior behind the news, and the mental patterns that shape the world you live in. Your mind is worth understanding.